it's fair to say, I think, that most children are giving you the behaviour that works for them. And I think we need to change that behaviour to one that works for them and works for us. So let's start with the ABC of behaviour. We will hit the straps and run fairly quickly through this so that we can put the science of this behind us and spend a little more time on the strategies that I think most of us would invest in. And the ABC stands for, the A is antecedents, and that's the events or triggers that prompt a behaviour. They're what come before the behaviour. The B obviously stands for the behaviour itself. That's whatever it is that we target and say is undesirable. And the C is for consequence. And there is a misunderstanding around consequence. We believe that's the negative consequence sometimes. We believe that's the punishment, but it's not. In this case, the science of behaviour refers to consequence as the consequential outcome. What did the child get out of that? Not the punishment, but what did they actually get? Did they get out of something? I often like to think of it, well, what are you actually fishing for? What are you here for? What's this all about? So that's the ABC. And we'll just investigate that a little bit more closely because that is the science. I just want to put this under our belts so that we can use it as a building block for further learning. The functional behaviour, or the Y of behaviour, antecedent, is broken into two parts. One part is the trigger, it's the when, and the other part is the where. Now, the where, you can think of it as a school routine. Is it lunch or is it playtime? Is it maths? Where is it occurring? The B is the behaviour, it's what's happening, and all too often the B is what we're writing on a school report at the end of the day, whether it's in Queensland on one school or alternative reports in other states. And the C is what we expect the child is going to get out of that behaviour. So there's the ABC of behaviour. When we do this in practical FBA and in function of behaviour, we do it as three boxes, and you can see that we have box antecedent, box behaviour, and box consequence. Now, we always start when we look at behaviour through the lens of behaviour first. So whenever we're looking at function of behaviour, and if you're working in a school that's a PBL school, you will be looking at behaviour that is observable, measurable, and repeated. And we're quite defined about what we'll say is the behaviour. We'll actually write it down and make it quite clear that our definition is observable, measurable, and is repeated. And that way we can look for that behaviour and we can look for the change of that behaviour. Because what can happen is we can change the goalposts. Some people can say, oh, that's not exactly what it was this or it was that. But if we name it as something that's observable and measurable, we clear up what we're looking for. And often we target only one very defined behaviour in an FBA. Before, though, we look at the behaviour, we also need to be strong on what triggered that behaviour in the first place. What is the antecedent? What tripped that behaviour to occur? And there are two parts to that. The behaviour, the where and the when is what comes before. That's the antecedent. So we've now got our two boxes. So the where is the routine, and you might think of it as the maths class or in gym or at lunch. That's the routine. And whilst the language is a little bit scientific, I just want to be sure that we've got that build in our work so we don't become informal in how we manage our work in FBA. The second part there is when it happens. Exactly what happened. What was it the very moment before that behaviour occurred? So if we have a look at this example, I would ask you to read it through to yourself. And the first thing we do is we write down the behaviour. And what is the behaviour in this example? It would be Ben hits the student. And then I'd ask you, well, what then is the routine? Where did it occur in the school? What was going on in the school at that time? And that would be lunch. And finally, what was it that just triggered that behaviour just before it happened? When told to shut up by a peer.